I never thought running away could feel so heavy. Standing on the curb of a quiet street, clutching my coat around my swollen belly, I realized that freedom didn't come with applause or relief, just an aching loneliness and a tangle of what-ifs. The taxi I had hailed moments ago had disappeared into the traffic like a ghost, leaving me with only the sound of my own uneven breaths. My name is Lila. 2 years ago, I was trapped in a marriage that promised stability but delivered nothing but suffocating pressure and whispered threats behind closed doors. Now I was 7 months pregnant, a suitcase in one hand, and the other resting on the small life growing inside me. I had escaped, but the question gnawed at my chest. At what cost? The street was empty except for the occasional rustle of leaves and a distant bark of a dog. And then, as if the universe had decided to punctuate my misery with irony, I saw her. I froze. My heart thumped like a war drum, a mix of disbelief and longing so sharp it nearly stole my breath. There she was, Emma, my ex-wife, the woman who had once been my home, my secret laughter, my late-night solace. She looked almost the same, yet older, wiser, with a subtle glow of happiness that I hadn't seen in years. She carried herself with the ease of someone who had moved on, or at least had learned to pretend she had. Our eyes met. The world shrunk to that instant, the air thick with memories and unsaid apologies. I didn't move. My legs refused to obey. Emma's lips parted just slightly, a smile hovering on the edge, hesitant, unsure if she should cross the street or run. I wanted to call out, to shout her name, to demand an explanation for the years of silence. But all I could do was stare, my heart unraveling in slow, painful beats. The first words between us were not gentle, not warm. "You're pregnant." Emma's voice was a mix of shock and something else I couldn't place. Hurt, confusion, or the remnants of the love we had once dared to share. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling as I lifted my hand to rest on my belly. "I ran away. From everything." Emma stepped closer, her eyes scanning me as if seeing me for the first time and for the last time simultaneously. "From him?" she asked, and I felt a pang of bitterness at the simplicity of the word. "You mean, from your husband?" "Yes." The single word was heavy with years of resentment, fear, and the unexpected bravery it had taken to step away. Emma's expression softened. She reached out, almost hesitantly, her fingers brushing mine. The warmth of her touch made my chest ache in a way I had thought I had outgrown. I could feel her heartbeat through the thin fabric of my coat, sensing just for a moment with mine. "I never thought I'd see you again," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not like this. Not with all of this." I looked down at my belly, suddenly self-conscious. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't want to be alone. She shook her head slowly, stepping back a little but keeping her eyes locked with mine. "You're not alone," she said, almost like a promise. "Not anymore. Not if you don't want to be." The world seemed absurdly quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring and your lungs feel tight. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to collapse into her arms all at once, but instead I found myself taking a tentative step forward. "Do you want to come for a coffee?" I asked, my voice small, almost timid. "I mean, I need to talk. If you have the time." Emma's smile was fleeting, but it carried all the warmth I remembered. I think I could use a coffee too," she said. We walked together, side by side, the distance between us both literal and metaphorical. Every step was a dance of hesitation and hope, every glance a reminder of what had been lost and what could still be salvaged. The coffee shop was small, cozy, tucked away between two larger buildings. It smelled of fresh pastries and rich espresso. We found a corner table, away from the prying eyes of the few patrons, and sat across from each other. The silence that hung between us wasn't uncomfortable, it was charged, alive, full of the weight of years. I thought I was doing the right thing," I said finally, my fingers tracing the rim of my coffee cup. "Marrying him. Staying. I thought it would make sense." Emma watched me carefully, her eyes reflecting a mixture of sympathy and restrained anger. "You were scared," she said simply. "You didn't know how else to survive. I get that. I thought leaving would be easier. That I could just start over. I continued, my voice cracking as the words spilled out. But it's not. It's never easy. And I didn't expect to see you here now after all these years. Emma reached across the table, taking my hand in both of hers. Her touch was gentle but firm, grounding me in a way I hadn't realized I needed. Life has a funny way of bringing people back, she said, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable truth. Even when we think the doors are closed forever. For the first time since I had escaped, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't a bright, blinding light, it was subtle, almost fragile, but it was there, flickering like the first star of the evening. We talked for hours. About everything and nothing. About the years we had lost, about mistakes and regrets, about fleeting happiness and lingering sorrow. Emma listened without judgment, laughed at the stories I told, and occasionally squeezed my hand when my eyes welled with tears. There were moments when I would look at her and see not just my past but a possibility. A chance to rebuild, to reclaim a piece of myself I had thought gone forever. But there was also fear of the unknown, of the complications that came with my pregnancy, with her life, with the reality that love wasn't always simple. When we finally stepped out into the fading light of the afternoon, the world felt both heavier and lighter at the same time. Heavier because reality was waiting, because life had to continue, because choices had consequences. Lighter because she was there, standing next to me, reminding me that sometimes the heart finds its way back when we least expect it. Emma looked at me, a playful glint in her eyes as if reading my thoughts. You know, she said with a teasing smile, you always had a knack for dramatic entrances. I laughed, the sound shaky but genuine, and felt the tension in my shoulders ease just slightly. I suppose some things never change, I replied. As we walked side by side down the quiet street, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot, I realized that this unexpected reunion, this fragile yet undeniable connection was only the beginning. The road ahead would be complicated, filled with challenges and uncertainties. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I wasn't walking it alone. The days that followed felt surreal, like I had stepped into a dream I wasn't sure I deserved. Emma and I met frequently, sometimes under the pretense of casual coffee or lunch breaks, sometimes just for a walk along the neighborhood streets we had once roamed together years ago. Every moment with her brought a mixture of warmth and pain, warmth because she was there, and pain because of all the years we had lost. I noticed little things first. The way she furrowed her brows when she concentrated, the small laugh that always escaped her when she found something amusing, the subtle brush of her hand against mine that felt electric even after all these years. I had missed these moments, these tiny intimate details that defined her. And somehow seeing her again, after running from one life into another, made me feel both vulnerable and alive. One evening we decided to take a walk by the river, where the city lights reflected on the calm water, flickering like scattered stars. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain and autumn leaves. I wore a thick coat over my growing belly, and Emma's scarf was loosely draped around her neck, her fingers occasionally adjusting it as if she were unaware of the nervous energy radiating from her. You've changed, she said suddenly, her voice quiet, almost contemplative. But, in a good way. Stronger. More. Yourself. I looked at her, unsure how to respond. I had to change, I said softly, or I would have been swallowed whole by a life I didn't want. She nodded, as if she understood more than I was willing to admit. Then she paused, taking a deep breath, and said something that caught me completely off guard. I've thought about you. Every year, every month. I wondered if you were happy, if you were alive. Not just breathing, but really alive. The words hit me harder than any slap or confrontation ever could. I had imagined this moment countless times in my mind, sometimes rewriting the past to make it fairer, kinder. And yet, hearing her say it, knowing she had carried this longing silently all those years, it made me ache. I don't know if I was alive, I admitted, my voice cracking. I was surviving. That was all I knew how to do. She reached for my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. The simple touch sparked something deep within me, a longing I hadn't felt since we were last together. Maybe it's not too late, she whispered. We walked in silence for a while, the city buzzing softly around us, yet it felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of us. Then, almost instinctively, I rested my head on her shoulder, feeling the steady warmth of her body against mine. She didn't move, didn't speak, simply let me lean there, as if offering shelter from the storm of emotions swirling inside me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I allowed myself to relax. I let go of the fear that had driven me to flee my life, the fear that had kept me isolated and alone. Emma's presence was grounding, a reminder that love, real, messy, complicated love, was still possible. But life, as always, refused to be simple. A few days later, as I returned to my small apartment, I found a letter slipped under the door. It was from my husband, and my stomach tightened instantly. I hadn't expected him to find me so quickly, nor had I wanted to deal with him now. My hand shook as I tore open the envelope, the paper trembling under my fingers. The words were calculated, cold yet desperate. You can't run forever, Lila. Think of the baby. Think of the life you are throwing away. Come back before it's too late. I crumpled the letter in my hand, a mix of anger and fear bubbling up. He didn't understand, never had. I wasn't running because of fear alone. I was running because I needed to survive, to reclaim myself. And now, with Emma reappearing in my life, the stakes had changed. I couldn't imagine returning to a life that had suffocated me. But I also couldn't ignore the reality of my pregnancy and the responsibilities it carried. That night, I called Emma, my voice wavering as I recounted what had happened. She listened quietly, never interrupting, never judging. When I finished, she spoke, her tone firm but tender. You don't owe him anything, Lila. You owe yourself. And if you want, I'll be here. We'll figure it out together. Tears welled in my eyes. The thought of facing the future with her by my side, someone who understood me, who had loved me unconditionally, was almost too much to bear. But even in that hope, fear lingered. Could we really rebuild what had been broken? Could love survive the years, the distance, the pain? Emma sensed my hesitation. She gently cupped my face in her hands, her thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. It won't be easy, she admitted. Life rarely is. But it will be worth it. If we let it. The following weeks were a delicate dance of emotions and logistics. I had to navigate doctor appointments, find a safe place to stay, and confront the reality of my estranged husband's persistent attempts to contact me. Through it all, Emma was unwavering. She drove me to appointments, sat with me through long nights of anxiety, and offered a steady shoulder when the world felt too heavy. There were moments of tension, of vulnerability so raw it left me shaking. Emma would sometimes remind me gently, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel everything at once. And I did. I allowed myself to feel the fear, the uncertainty, the longing, the hope, all mingling together in a confusing, beautiful mess. One rainy evening, as we sat in my small apartment listening to the soft patter of raindrops against the window, Emma reached for my hand. Do you remember? She asked. The first time we kissed? I smiled despite myself, memories flooding back. You were stubborn. You wouldn't admit you liked me, but you couldn't stop staring. She laughed softly, her eyes glimmering with amusement and affection. And you chased me anyway. Ridiculous, stubborn girl. We laughed together, the sound filling the apartment with warmth. Then, without thinking, I leaned into her, my lips finding hers in a kiss that was tender, hesitant, yet filled with the intensity of years of longing. She responded immediately, her arms wrapping around me, pulling me close, grounding me in the reality of her love. It was a kiss that said everything words couldn't. It spoke of regret, of hope, of the desire to reclaim what had been lost. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads resting against each other, I whispered, I don't want to lose you again. You won't, she promised, her voice steady, certain. Not this time. But life, as it always does, tested our resolve. My estranged husband, relentless and embittered, had begun showing up at places I frequented, leaving messages that became increasingly aggressive. The fear of confrontation, of exposing myself and my unborn child to danger, forced me to make decisions I never wanted to face alone. Emma didn't hesitate. We'll deal with it together, she said firmly. And together we did. She accompanied me to legal consultations, helped me establish boundaries, and most importantly, reminded me that I was not alone. Amidst the chaos, moments of intimacy and tenderness blossomed. Late nights were spent in quiet conversation, discussing everything from baby names to dreams of the future. We cooked meals together, laughed at each other's clumsiness, and held each other through waves of emotion that neither of us could fully articulate. The pregnancy, once a source of fear and anxiety, became a shared journey, a bridge between past and present, fear and hope. One afternoon, as we walked through a nearby park, Emma paused, looking at the trees with their autumn leaves fluttering gently to the ground. She took a deep breath, her hand resting lightly on my belly. "You know," she said softly, "life has a funny way of punishing us for mistakes, and then rewarding us for surviving them." I looked at her, seeing the truth in her eyes. "Surviving? And maybe even thriving," I added, squeezing her hand. Emma smiled, her eyes reflecting the golden afternoon light, a warmth that had always drawn me in. "Yes, thriving. Together." For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine a future not defined by fear, by obligation, or by past mistakes. A future where love wasn't a fleeting dream but a living, breathing reality. A future where I and the little life growing inside me could find safety, warmth, and happiness. We sat on a park bench, hands intertwined, hearts synchronized in quiet understanding. The city moved around us, indifferent, rushing, chaotic. But in that moment, time seemed to stand still. Two women, broken yet resilient, finding each other again amidst the wreckage of the past, daring to hope that love could be more than just memory. And though challenges still loomed, legal battles, societal judgment, personal fears, the foundation had been laid. Trust rebuilt slowly, hearts reopened cautiously, and love rediscovered deliberately. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, I felt ready to face it. With Emma by my side, I could face anything. The winter chill settled over the city, crisp and biting, yet somehow comforting when I was with Emma. Snow dusted the streets in a delicate layer, softening the edges of the world, just as Emma's presence had softened mine. The months since our reunion had been a whirlwind of emotions, challenges, and quiet victories. The legal battles with my estranged husband had been exhausting, but we faced them together, and each small win felt monumental. I was now 8 months pregnant, and the once daunting reality of motherhood began to feel more like an adventure shared with someone I loved. Emma had become not only my anchor but my confidant, my co-conspirator, my home. Every day her presence reminded me that love, when nurtured carefully and honestly, could endure almost anything. One morning, I woke to find her preparing breakfast in the tiny kitchen of my apartment. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating her soft brown hair and the delicate lines of her face that I had memorized years ago. She hummed quietly to herself, a tune I remembered from our younger days, a song that had once played during our first dance together in that small, crowded living room. "Morning," I said, my voice hoarse from sleep. I rubbed my swollen belly and smiled as she looked up, her eyes brightening immediately. "Good morning, Mama," she teased, using a nickname I hadn't heard in years but had grown to love instantly. She placed a warm plate in front of me, pancakes slightly misshapen but perfect in their imperfection. I laughed, a sound of pure contentment that had been rare in the past years. "You've been practicing," I said. "Every day," she replied, sliding into the chair across from me. "I want you to know that I'm ready for all of it. Every midnight feed, every diaper change, every moment of doubt. I'm ready because I'm here. With you." The words sank into me, warm and grounding. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine, feeling the solidity, the certainty of her love. "I don't know what I did to deserve you," I whispered, voice trembling with emotion. "You loved me once," she said simply, "and you found me again. That's enough." As the days passed, the bond between us deepened even further. We prepared the apartment for the baby together, painting the nursery a soft, warm yellow and placing tiny clothes in neat piles. Every task, mundane though it might have seemed to an outsider, carried significance. It was proof that we were building something together, something that had survived loss, pain, and separation. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, sipping hot chocolate and watching the flames dance, Emma's gaze fell on me with an intensity one hadn't seen in years. "You know," she said, her voice low and thoughtful, "I never stopped loving you. Even when I told myself I had, even when life seemed to demand I move on. I never stopped." I swallowed hard, my heart swelling with a mix of relief, love, and awe. "I never stopped either," I admitted, tears welling in my eyes. "I was scared, Emma. so scared that I'd lose you forever. But now I feel like we have a chance to do it right. Emma leaned across the small space between us, her lips brushing mine in a kiss that was tender yet filled with years of pent-up longing. I felt the electricity in her touch, the warmth of her body against mine, and the quiet certainty that this was where I belonged. The birth of our child was both miraculous and terrifying. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and anticipation, and the quiet beeping of monitors punctuated the tension in the air. I clutched Emma's hand, her own grasp firm and unwavering. "You're amazing," she whispered. "You've got this. We've got this." Hours passed in a blur of contractions, encouragement, and exhaustion. I felt as though I were simultaneously at the brink of breaking and being reborn. Emma never left my side, whispering words of love, adjusting blankets, holding my hand, and brushing damp hair from my forehead. The intensity of it all, the pain, the fear, the exhilaration, was softened only by her unwavering presence. And then finally it happened. The cries of a newborn filled the room, sharp and piercing, yet beautiful beyond measure. The doctor placed a tiny wriggling bundle in my arms and I gasped, overwhelmed by love so deep it felt like it could shatter me. Emma knelt beside me, tears streaming down her face, and together we gazed at the miracle we had created. "She's perfect," I whispered, my voice breaking as I traced the delicate features of our daughter. Emma kissed my temple, her lips lingering, a promise unspoken but understood. "Perfect," she echoed. "Just like you." The weeks that followed were a mixture of chaos and joy. Sleepless nights blurred into days, filled with feeding, diaper changes, and quiet moments of wonder as we watched our daughter grow. Every smile, every tiny coo, every tentative grasp of our fingers reminded us of what we had fought for, what we had survived, and what we now had to cherish. Amidst it all, our love deepened in ways neither of us had anticipated. The quiet mornings spent in the nursery, the shared laughter over spilled milk, the soft, whispered conversations in the dark hours of the night, all of it created a tapestry of life and love that was uniquely ours. One particularly cold winter evening, we sat together by the window, wrapped in blankets, watching the snow fall gently outside. Our daughter lay between us, wrapped in a tiny knitted blanket, breathing softly and contentedly. "I never imagined it would be like this," I said softly, leaning against Emma's shoulder. "After everything, after all the pain, I thought happiness was impossible." Emma's arm tightened around me. "Happiness isn't impossible," she said gently. "It's fragile, yes. It's fleeting, yes. But when you find it, when you hold on to it, it becomes stronger than you ever imagined. Just like us." I nodded, tears glistening in my eyes. "I love you, Emma. More than words could ever say." "I love you too, Lila," she replied, her voice steady, unwavering. "And I always will." Life continued, imperfect and messy as life always does. There were challenges, financial concerns, sleepless nights, and lingering fears of the past, but we faced them together. Every obstacle became a shared burden, every triumph a shared joy. Our love, once tested by time and circumstance, had emerged resilient, tempered by hardship and strengthened by unwavering commitment. Months turned into years. Our daughter grew, a lively, curious child with Emma's eyes and my stubbornness. We celebrated birthdays, first steps, and first words together, the household filled with laughter and warmth. Friends and family slowly became part of our life, offering support, encouragement, and sometimes gentle reminders of the journey we had endured. Through it all, Emma and I never lost sight of the bond that had brought us together. The quiet evenings by the fireplace, the shared walks through autumn leaves, the late-night conversations over cups of tea, these moments became the pillars of our happiness, grounding us in a love that had once seemed impossible. I often reflected on the strange, winding path that had led me here. Running away, fearing the unknown, finding myself in isolation, it had all seemed insurmountable at the time. Yet, each step, each difficult decision had brought me closer to Emma, to the life we now shared. The irony wasn't lost on me. Fleeing from one form of obligation and fear had ultimately led me to a love and family I had once thought lost forever. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Emma and I sat on the porch with our daughter asleep between us. The world around us was quiet, peaceful, and infinite in its possibilities. I rested my head on Emma's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, and whispered, "We made it." Emma kissed the top of my head, her hand brushing gently over my hair. "Yes," she said softly, "we did. And we'll keep making it, every single day together." In that moment I understood something profound. Happiness wasn't a grand event or a fleeting moment of perfection. It was the quiet, steady accumulation of love, trust, and resilience. It was choosing each other day after day, in the face of fear, doubt, and the unpredictability of life. As the stars emerged in the night sky, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The past, with all its mistakes, regrets, and missed opportunities, had shaped us, but it no longer defined us. The future, bright and uncertain, stretched before us, filled with possibilities we would navigate together. Emma squeezed my hand and I returned the gesture, feeling the depth of our connection, the unspoken promise that no matter what came, we would face it together. The love that had been dormant, that had survived years of separation and heartache, now burned brighter than ever, illuminating the path forward. And so, in the quiet of that winter night, with our daughter safe in our arms and the world stretched endlessly around us, I finally understood the true meaning of home. It wasn't a place or a moment, it was a person. It was Emma. It was us. And it was the life we had fought so hard to reclaim, imperfect, messy, but entirely undeniably ours. We had escaped the pressures of the past, survived the storms of fear and doubt, and emerged into a love that was tender, resilient, and everlasting. And for the first time in a long while, I smiled without hesitation, without fear, without reservation, knowing that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Life would continue to challenge us, to surprise us, to test the limits of our love. But with Emma by my side, I knew we could endure anything. Together we had rewritten our story, transforming pain into love, regret into hope, and fleeting moments into a lifetime of happiness. And as the snow fell gently around us, the night quiet and serene, I whispered into the cold air, "Thank you, fate. Thank you for bringing her back to me." Emma leaned closer, resting her forehead against mine, and whispered, "And thank you for running back to me, Lila. We're finally home." Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.